The blast came first, a concussion that slapped the windows and rattled my teeth, and then the scream of twisting metal, followed like an animal. Being dragged across concrete, dust rolled over my porch in a choking cloud, and the taste of iron hit the back of my tongue as I stumbled toward the fence. Sirens weren't there yet, just the stunned silence of neighbors frozen mid-step, mouths open, phones halfway raised. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from, because what happened next still feels unreal even to me. I stood there barefoot in the gravel, heart hammering, staring at the smoking crater that used to be my back field. Someone yelled my name, stretched thin with panic, but I couldn't answer because my ears were ringing too loud. The air smelled like burned plastic and rotten eggs, and my brain kept whispering one word I didn't want to hear. Pipeline. That morning had started like any other. The kind of ordinary you don't appreciate until it's gone. Sunlight came in clean through the kitchen window, lighting the coffee steam and the crumbs on the counter. I was halfway through buttering toast when I heard the low rumble beyond the fence, steady and mechanical. At first I thought it was a garbage truck, then a lawn crew. Nothing worth more than a glance. Our subdivision was quiet by design, all manicured hedges and matching mailboxes. The HOA liked it that way, rules laminated and handed down like commandments. I had learned to ignore them, the notices taped to doors and slid under wipers. That was before the drilling rig rolled onto my land. I stepped outside and felt the vibration through my boots before I saw the machine. A yellow auger stood upright in my back field, chewing into the soil like it owned the place. Men in reflective vests moved with practiced confidence. Cones set up, clipboard out. And there she was, arms crossed, chin lifted, sunglasses reflecting my own confusion back at me. Karen. She was the HOA board president, self-appointed sheriff of our little kingdom. Her voice carried even before I reached the fence, sharp and rehearsed. Sir, you need to stay back for safety reasons. I remember gripping the fence wire so hard it bit into my palm. That's my land, I said, and my voice sounded smaller than I wanted. Karen smiled without warmth and tapped her clipboard with a manicured nail. Community project, she said. Emergency water access for everyone. I asked where the notice was, where the vote had been, where the permits were. She tilted her head like I was a slow child. The board approved it, she said, and the workers didn't look at me. The auger roared louder, drowning out my protest. Neighbors began to gather, drawn by the noise and Karen's commanding tone. Phones came out, whispers followed, the kind that stick to your back like sweat. I felt heat rising in my chest, a mix of anger and something colder. I knew that land better than anyone, every dip and rock buried beneath it. My grandfather had walked it with me when I was 10, telling stories I barely listened to then. He had pointed to the markers, the faded signs most people ignored. I told Karen there was a reason you didn't dig there without surveys. She waved me off and signaled the operator to continue. The ground shuddered, a wrongness I felt more than saw. The auger slowed, then caught. Metal screaming against something it shouldn't have found. I opened my mouth to shout, to beg them to stop. Karen's heels crunched on gravel as she stepped closer, irritation flashing across her face. Enough drama, she snapped, loud enough for the crowd. The operator leaned into his controls, forcing the drill deeper. The smell hit first, sharp and sulfurous, burning my nose. Then the world turned white. When the shock wave passed, sound came back in pieces, broken and jagged. People were yelling, some crying, some laughing in disbelief, and someone was praying out loud. I dropped to my knees, hands shaking, dirt embedded in my skin. Karen was on the ground too, her sunglasses gone, hair wild with dust. The drilling rig lay twisted like a dead insect, smoke curling from its body. I tasted blood and metal and fear all mixed together. A neighbor grabbed my shoulder, eyes wide. Was that a gas line? Emergency vehicles screamed into the street, lights painting the houses red and blue. Firefighters fanned out, shouting orders, herding us back. The smell grew worse as foam sprayed, hissing over scorched earth. Karen was up now, shouting at a paramedic, demanding to see someone in charge. Her voice cracked, the authority leaking out with every word. I watched her from behind the tape, something grim settling in my stomach. This wasn't just an accident. It was a crime scene, and I knew more than I had said. An officer approached me, notebook already open. "Sir, this is your property?" he asked, calm but alert. I nodded and pointed to the fence line, the old survey markers half buried. I told him about the signs, the warnings, the stories my grandfather told me. He raised an eyebrow and asked what kind of pipeline I thought it was. My throat went dry as I answered. High pressure, I said. Decommissioned on paper, still live in sections. Karen's shouting stopped mid-sentence when she heard that. The crowd buzzed as the words spread, speculation flying like sparks. Someone mentioned federal oversight, another whispered about prison. Karen marched toward us, face flushed, jabbing a finger in my direction. He's lying, she snapped. He never mentioned any pipeline. I met her eyes, steady now, the fear replaced by something harder. I did, I said. Twice. You told me to stop causing drama. The officer wrote faster, his pen scratching like an accusation. Karen's jaw clenched, the mask finally slipping. Fire marshals arrived next. Then men in suits with badges I recognized from old news stories. They walked the perimeter, spoke in low voices, took samples. One of them knelt by a bent signpost, brushing dirt away to reveal faded lettering. I watched his expression change as he read it. He stood and showed it to his partner, who swore under his breath. Karen backed away slowly, bumping into a neighbor who didn't move aside. Her confidence collapsed into frantic excuses. This was for the community, she kept saying. They asked for permits, authorizations, emails, anything that justified the dig. Karen pulled out her phone, hands trembling, scrolling too fast. She showed them HOA letterheads stamped and signed by herself. The badge-wearing man didn't even look impressed. This isn't authority, he said flatly. This is impersonation. A murmur rippled through the crowd, a collective intake of breath. I felt a strange calm, like standing after a storm passes. But the real twist was still coming. One of the agents asked if I was aware of an easement agreement. I nodded and told him about the file I kept inherited with the land. He asked to see it, and I told him it was in my safe. Karen's eyes widened, a flicker of recognition flashing there. She opened her mouth, then closed it, swallowed hard. I walked past the tape, escorted now, feeling every stare. The house smelled like coffee and smoke when I opened the safe. Inside was the document she had counted on me forgetting. The paper was yellowed but intact, stamped with seals older than the HOA itself. The agent read it carefully, then smiled in a way that wasn't friendly. This pipeline, he said, tapping the page, is under federal protection. Karen sagged against the ambulance, color draining from her face. They read her rights while the neighbors watched, silent now. She tried to speak, to argue, but the words tangled and fell apart. I felt no triumph, just a heavy relief settling into my bones. Justice isn't loud, it's final. Investigations followed, weeks of interviews and news vans parked outside. The HOA board dissolved overnight, members resigning by email. Karen was charged with impersonation, reckless endangerment, and fraud. The workers testified they'd been shown fake permits, pressured to hurry. Fines were levied, liens placed, apologies issued through lawyers. My land was repaired, monitored, and finally fenced with proper warning signs. Neighbors brought casseroles and awkward thank yous. The quiet returned, different but earned. Sometimes I walk the field at dusk, listening to the wind move through the grass. I think about how easily authority is faked when no one questions it. How trust, once broken, leaves a scar you can't see but always feel. Karen wanted control more than safety, power more than permission. It cost her everything she pretended to protect. If there's a lesson, it's this. Real authority stands up to scrutiny. Before you like, share, or comment, remember who you trust and why. And if someone tells you to stay back, make sure they actually have the right to say it.